Hey YouTube, if you ever get frustrated, wish you had something to do that's not overly taxing, this is it. This is like whittling. I just cut all the boards that were left over from 4 logs, and I got about, I want to say 200 feet lumber, all nice pine. I'm cutting this stuff up into easy-to-use kindling for my neighbor, so that he doesn't have to be out there killing himself trying to make a fire in the morning up there at his hunting camp. This wood's not dry, it's still pretty wet, and that's why it's not splitting real easy. But it doesn't take much for it to dry. And the good thing about pine is that it burns good once it's a little dry. It only needs to get down to about 18% to be good for firewood. So while you're sitting here splitting the wood, you can be thinking about a whole bunch of other stuff, like what you want to do, and at least this way here, you're not spending any money. Wow, this stuff really is wet. Usually pine splits like nothing. You know, I had a guy asked me a question about how do you make money with a Woodmizer, or not just a Woodmizer, but a portable bandsaw mill. And one of the things that I used to teach when I was an adjunct lecturer at nighttime would be the time value of money. And in that subject, there's some, or in that course, there's some subjects that have to do with what type of business you would have, a business entity. In other words, corporation or limited liability company or whatever, limited partnerships, things like that. And there was also a lot of stuff in there about, you know, how to go into business and how to start a business. And I've had many businesses, but the one way about when it comes to starting a business, you don't want to start a business that you have to rely on, especially if you're on a shoestring budget. You don't want to start a business where you have to rely on someone else to give you all of your information. In other words, you know nothing about it. It's not that those businesses aren't successful, some are. In other words, it would be like somebody lending somebody money to start a business that they know nothing about, but they know that they want so much interest for the money. And if that's the way you'll operate, if that's the kind of money you can get, whatever happens, happens. But what I'm getting at here is a legitimate how to do things by yourself, starting from scratch. So the best thing is this: if you don't know anything about something, then that may not be the business that you should go into. So I was a builder ever since I was a little kid. I helped my dad building. He built things. So I was a builder. I owned a lumber yard, and then I also had another sawmill. Then I got this sawmill. So understanding how this business works and what people want out of it is something that's easy for me to comprehend and to deal with. Now, if you find yourself a Woodmizer mill or any other mill, just a sawmill in general, and you really don't know anything about the lumber business, you have to realize it's going to take you a while to learn stuff. Now, the lumber business is not rocket science, there's no doubt about that, but it does take a certain amount of know-how to get things going and to know who to sell to, and you have to offer a certain product, a certain type of a product. In other words, the other day, I'll give you an example of what I mean by a certain type of product. The other day, if you watch my videos, I do body work, and I can take metal, flat piece of metal, and form it into any body part. And the thing is, if somebody showed me a picture of a car and he says to me, "Can you make these body parts?" Well, yes, I can make the body parts. But then the question came up, how much do you charge? Well, here's the problem. Custom body parts are places that do that, like myself, are far and few between. There's not a whole lot of guys that can do it, but yet, people need parts, so they usually buy the part. And because the parts are stamped out, the price of them is fairly reasonable, and you more or less get a lump sum amount. It's told to you, for what the value of the part is, so you pay for it and that's it. But when you're making custom parts, if I start working on a car, I have no idea, neither does the owner, 99% of the time. Neither does the owner know how extensive the rust is on a car. Where all does it go? And to be asked the question, how much will you charge to fix the rust, they're not understanding that when they say, how much is the panel to fix the rust? Well, I can't give a price for a panel that fixes the rust, because if the rust goes beyond the extent of the panel, what do you do with that? Then the customer's crying to you, "Oh, well, I wish you would have fixed that. I want to fix the car." I know these things from doing it, and, it's not something that you want to get involved with. It's just a pain. And what I'm getting at is with the sawmill, if you don't know the different types of wood and you don't know what you can do with them, then it's pretty hard to know what you're going to do to make a living. I mean, you have to decide. If it was up to me, because of my background, I'd rather cut pine and construction lumber more than I would any other type. The problem with construction lumber, and it's like everything else in this freaking country that's bad, is that what happened is they developed some society where only certain people are allowed to grade wood. Now granted, when people are trying to save a buck, they tend to use the cheapest absolute junk that they can find, and that's not going to help you when you're building a house, because if a bank invests in the house, or just your own investment, you soon realize that the house falls apart. I have a relative that isn't too neat about things, and what he did was built the house out of the cheapest junk you could find before they had building code. The house is constantly falling apart or has roof problems or whatever. But so what I'm getting at is you need to know about the quality of the wood that you're needing or making, cutting, whatever, and what has value and what doesn't. Construction grade lumber, they cut a lot of it every day, and even if you cut it and you have a good eye for it, you can use construction grade lumber to build a house that's cut on a sawmill. It doesn't have to be plain. As long as the moisture content's somewhere where it ought to be, there's no reason why you can't build a house from the wood that comes off the mill. But it reminds me, a friend of mine was talking to a woman, and he had a farm and he was selling fruit and stuff, vegetables, and he also sold chickens. And the woman said, he said to her, would you like to buy some chicken that's on sale? And the woman said, no, I only buy real chicken. And he said, what do you mean by that? She said, I only buy chicken that comes in a package at the store. Not even knowing that that's where the chickens freaking come from. You know, now granted, you know, if you're going to buy something at a farmer and the guy's a slob and you go to buy it and it's in a freaking paper bag with blood dripping out of it, it's not too enticing as wanting to buy it. But, I mean, really, if people don't know where stuff comes from, they don't understand the price of it. That's what I'm getting at here. So, anyway, if you don't, you have to pick what you want to cut and why you want to cut it. If you want to sell wood to furniture makers, then realize one thing. There are a lot of people who fool around with furniture, but there's not too many who are real furniture makers. And the ones that I know that know how to really make furniture, especially some of the Mennonites and Amish people are good at it. They tend to already have access to a sawmill 90% of the time, or they themselves will own a sawmill, because that's the best way to get the best price for lumber. The other thing that you need to know is, besides what type of lumber you're going to cut up, you know, you should try to find out ahead of time where the market is. I mean, there's a market for rough cut heavy lumber, for instance, for heavy construction equipment like lowboys and things. You know, a lowboy that carries heavy equipment does not have a metal floor, or at least it shouldn't. It has a metal frame, but it has a wood floor so that the tracks don't slide easily off of it. And a lot of those guys, you know, it's not usually made out of treated wood. It's usually made out of just rough cut, and the best is white oak. If you can find, you know, a big contractor who may be, you know, wanting to keep up on his stuff, they'll buy that. Or blocking. A lot of times you can advertise blocking, but it's not where you're going to make, you know, cut one item up and make a fortune on just cutting one item all the time. You can. I mean, like for instance, the oak that I have there. If I decide to sell it to the floor manufacturer, then, you know, that's one thing that I've done. But what you really want to do is have diverse. In other words, you want to be able to sell to furniture makers, carpenters, contractors, and the people fixing the beds on those trucks. You want to be able to have some of that stuff around. Now that takes a little bit of an inventory, because nobody wants to wait. If, you know, they come, oh, I need boards for my truck. They're not waiting 6 months. That's why they came today. So you'd really want to see if you can't, you know, get yourself figured out a list of things that you want to have in inventory. It's no different than any other store. Although today, you know, you buy stuff on the internet, there's one warehouse somewhere that has stuff in it and nobody else stocks it. Years ago when I was a kid, you used to be able to say to somebody, can you go in the back and see if you have another one? Today there is no in the back. Everything is out on the shelves. There's very few things that are not you know, sitting there ready to sell. Sometimes if it just came in, they might have it on their loading dock, but they don't stock a lot of stuff. But the thing is, with cutting lumber, you can stock all kind of stuff, because out of one oak tree, like say a white oak, you can stock boards for furniture. You can stock boards for the beds of trucks. You can even use some of that stuff for construction if it's, you know, good enough or nice enough. Like they use white pine, or white oak, I mean, is good for not necessarily ground contact, but it's good for, you know, outside work, some things, and you need to know what that is. I'm trying to get cleaned up here because I want to be able to get some more pine logs over here for my neighbor. I need to finish this siding. Right now you can see I'm in a sweatshirt again, so it's fairly warm out, but winter's coming, and up here, once it turns, it stays cold for a long time. Usually we have 6 months of winter, so right now having October here be so nice in the middle of October, it's really unusual. Normally I'm wearing a heavy shirt by now and trying to not do anything outside, putting all the hoses away and stuff. But yeah, so anyway, if you're gonna buy a mill and you think you're gonna make a fortune with it, maybe you can, but at least try and know before you buy the mill what you're buying it for. If you're just I hate to say this, but if you're one of these spoiled people that you spend money to buy something because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses or something stupid like that, then you don't even care if you make money with it. But if you're somebody who's just getting started and you're scratching for money and you need to make money or earn money somehow, I think that you should get yourself the market figured out ahead of time. And sometimes you can be your best market. I know that when I opened my lumber yard, the reason I opened a lumber yard was because I was a contractor buying a tractor trailer load of lumber, framing lumber, every week. And I needed to have access to lumber with no excuses. Well, I was my best customer because I was using my lumber yard as a stopping point for my people to be able to get whatever they need to build the houses that I was building. And yeah, that worked out fine for me. And then as you grow, you know, you build a customer base from regular people that are not builders, because once you're a builder and you own a lumber yard, other builders don't like to buy from you because you're their competition. But anyway, some of the ways to make money with this is you definitely have firewood. There's all kind of scab wood you can use for firewood. So process it and charge the same amount of money or slightly less as what the next guy charges. This way here you won't make it so that both of you are working for nothing. I know a lot of people say, oh well, this doesn't cost hardly nothing to do. Think about it. If you have a chainsaw, if you already have one, and you go out in the woods, you cut 4 trees down and you have a cord of firewood, you can say that this cost me nothing and I'm going to sell it for, I don't know what firewood goes for the cord, let's say $200 for $200. Okay, well it did cost you, it'll cost you your time and all. So you want to make sure that you're charging about the same price the next guy, maybe in another town or somewhere close to you, would charge, so that you don't put the both of you out of business by not charging enough to replace your chainsaw and stuff. That's where the time value of money comes in. It teaches you about depreciation and things that most people do not think about. When my neighbors come here and ask me to cut up a log, they don't recognize that every time I start that sawmill, the motor is getting life taken from it. The saw bed, every day that it goes by, you know, when we throw logs on there, it's not so much, I mean, the bed's holding up well, but nonetheless, things are wearing out. The Acme screws on the dogs tend to wear. Yes, it may take a while for it to wear out, but the point is you do have to replace that stuff. And if you have to borrow money to replace something because it wore out, then you don't know what you're doing as a businessman. Because as a businessman, you should never have to borrow money to fix a repair unless it's your money. What I mean by that is that you have it saved somewhere and you're going to borrow from yourself. Because if you have to borrow money, something broke down, and you need to keep going, that means that you never thought about it, or you're not charging enough money to keep yourself going. It's very important that you charge enough money to make repairs, to pay for insurance, wear and tear, or whatever else comes down the pipe. If you don't do that, you cannot stay in business. So these are some things that you need to think about before you go buying a sawmill and saying, well, let's go from there. I mean, I've seen how many guys on YouTube, they have their wives helping them, and they're cutting flitches because they don't want to have to make too many cuts. They're cutting flitches 3 inches thick on a 16-foot log. And I'm going to tell you something, I don't care who you are. Nobody can handle a flitch from a 24-inch log, 3 inches thick, that's 75% water, and 16-foot long. And I watched this girl pick this thing up, and it's not just one channel, it's a bunch of channels. And I'm guilty of it myself, asking my wife to help me, which is a mistake. So I stopped doing it. That's why I'm making all those things that I make to be able to pick logs up. But, you know, you need to think about that. If you don't have any help and you're an older person, you have to realize that if you hire somebody and you cut their freaking fingers off, or they break their, or they drop something on them. This past summer, my grandson, a log hit his foot and broke his big toe. So you really have to, you know, be prepared for all that stuff. And that's all part of the game. That's why you see people who do this business bring their family in, because family is not apt to sue you right away like a stranger would if you hurt yourself. And the way today is, you know, everybody wants that safety, this safety, that safety, the other thing. And the first thing they want to do if something goes wrong is file a lawsuit. All those things need to be thought of. Now, they should not be deterrents to go into business, especially the lumber business, but they should be warnings, all right? So, well guys, I'm not going to bore you anymore with splitting this firewood. I got about an hour to go yet, or half an hour, so that's all I wanted to say today. Not a lot going on. I did cut up all those boards I had on the carriage into wood, and it came out beautiful. I got a whole stack of wood. And that's another way you make money, by trading with your neighbors if you need something. You know, the older guy that I know, he brought me some pine logs. I cut him siding, and he gave me the flitches that came off the log, which I cut into 1x for boards. Plus he gave me logs to make siding for myself. So these are all good ways of doing things. Alright guys, I don't want to bore you anymore. Have a good one. Bye.